Okay. Can I start? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Um, I want to believe we're here. I want to welcome you to the second edition of Let's Climb. All right. If you are here, I want you to write something that would make me know that you're here with us. Okay. If you're here and live, I want you to just write Let's Climb. Okay. Just say Let's Climb. I can see we have one person already online. Um, okay. So we'll wait for some minutes to get other persons online and then we can start. So between now and when we start, you can go ahead and share this with your friends, share this with your loved ones, put it up on your status. All right. This is our second edition. And we want to, I just want to hope that this will be a very beautiful session. All right. Okay. I can see we have 5 person now. I can see Somto Anyanwu. I can see Dominion. I can see Covenant. Okay. Um, you're welcome. As you come in, just say let's climb. Get into your friends' DMs and ensure that let's ensure we have a full session today. All right. Okay. Okay. While we wait to get persons to get other persons online. Currently, we have 10 persons now online. Um let me quickly read through the forward, or let me read through the preface of the book Let's Climb. This is where we'll be starting from, and then we're now going to the proper session. So the climb, the book titled The Climb, this is it. Um, I said this, there are stories we inherit, there are stories we write. This is mine, written not just in words, but in scars, in battles, in stumbles, in small wins, and the firm affirmation that refused to let go. This book was motivated by the desire to tell my story and inspire every person, every reader, especially the next generation of young people, especially those born without privileges, or who think that the odds are stacked up against them, but with the hope of changing their fortune. Like many, I started my life with odds stacked high and running thin, but um, somewhere between the noise of struggle and the silence of doubt, I found something unshakable: the will to rise. Now, this book is not necessarily a manual. It won't give you 10 easy steps to success. What it offers instead is a window into my journey from a childhood marked by uncertainties to the life I live now, shaped with grit, with grace, and an unwavering faith. Every page of the climb carries a moment. Every page carries a lesson, a turning point that brought me closer to the man, to becoming the man I was meant to be. I wrote this book not because I figured it all out, but because that I know what it feels like to wonder if things will ever change. If you too are climbing out of pain, out of lack, out of terrible circumstances, out of doubts, then this book is for you. This book isn't just a list of achievements or a highlight reel, it is a journey, a climb, one filled with stumbles, faith and prayers, setbacks and breakthroughs. From dreaming in the dark to building in the light, I have seen firsthand how faith can pull you from the valley to the mountaintop. So even if you're still climbing, my story is still being written. And maybe that's why I wanted to share this now while the journey is still real. still raw, it's still unfolding. If you've ever felt called to do more, if you've ever wondered whether your dream can survive the weight of reality, I hope this story reminds you that you can. And more than that, it will. Welcome to the climb. Thank you, everyone. So that's actually the preface for the book Let's Climb. I have to say at this point that I'm highly grateful to every individual who have, since we wrote this book, we've gotten lots of comments, people sending in their reviews. We've gotten so many mails where people talk about how much they have learned from this group, from this book. Gotten so many questions. And for those of you who have actually read it, I would say that there's an email there where you can always send a review. I look forward to your review. I'm most grateful. And like I said before, this program, Let's Climb, was inspired by some of the questions we actually got on our mails, some people asking. And so this is an opportunity to try to address questions. So whenever you have questions, you can always put it. We're going to be having this series as often as possible. And then we'll look at, hopefully I can address some of the questions. That's why this is. I want to please tell you, I think it's a whole chapter was dedicated to, living a life of impact. I want to admonish you again that you learn way more. You There's a lot of fulfillment in being a blessing to someone. For this program especially, I want you to make it a point of duty to always invite someone. All right. So that's it. So during this is our second edition actually, and during our first edition, um, we spoke about the chapter one, and I gave some persons assignments to go ahead and just talk. Talk to yourself. Chapter one is titled "Greatness Prophesied." All right, and I spoke about how that in that chapter, how that from my childhood, though it was shaped with pain and all that, there was something that was constant. I had parents who were constantly speaking greatness into my life, and I spoke about. I said that there is something about words. The Bible says the power of life and death is in the tongue, and I remember saying emphatically that no matter the circumstance you find yourself at a time, if you're somebody who always speaks positively about yourself and your life, there's one thing that would happen: the quality of your life would be better. And I gave persons the task to, as much as possible, for the next 1 month, write out great things you want to say about yourself. And I hope you did it. All right. If you did it, I want you to also comment and say, yes, I did. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Somehow I'm not able to see the comments here anymore. Okay. I hope that will be resolved. I'm not able to see the comments. Okay. So we have today we're actually looking at the chapter two. We're actually looking at the chapter two, and the chapter two is titled "Shaped by Shadows, Strengthened by Thorns." Shaped by shadows, strengthened by thorns. For most of us who have read The Climb, I would say that chapter two is the one chapter that for most of you, it's I would say it's the most emotional chapter of this book, because what I tried to do in this chapter was to actually talk about, being very real and being practical about some of the challenges that I went through, some of the very terrible challenges I went through. I got a review within the week, and the person said when he was reading my book, he thought about himself. Thankfully, the person is a successful guy right now, and he was saying how that, he works in an oil company, and he was saying how that reading my book made him remember also himself, where he came from, and the challenges. he went through, and at the point when he was asking the same questions, like, does God really care? Why do I have to go through this? For some persons watching this, it may just be that this is your own reality right now, and your reality could just be that, oh, I'm asking myself that same questions. You know, that's it. What I tried to do was to be very real, to tell myself, I mean, to tell everyone the fact that, see, this is what I went through. All right. I started this chapter with this quote from C.S. Lewis. He said, hardship often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Hardship, you know, if hardship is well used, because it's not just that, oh, hardship prepares, it's about how are you using your hardship. One of the purposes of this of chapter 2 was to tell you that, see, we go through hardship, and one of the things I also inspired my writing this book. I mean, I've been a youth leader for a while. I get to interact with youth, I get to interface with youth, and there was this time, and this is exactly where I started from. It's a life indeed is filled with challenges, and I more than had my fair share of them. Writing this now as a youth leader, I have had the opportunity to speak to and counsel a number of young folks, and at times they look at me and think, oh, they love what they see. So one day, seated in my car by the roadside, a young man walked up to me and told me how much life had been unfair to him. And you know, and all that. I mean, I remember this young man. He just had a child, and he was telling me how that I mean, his wife just put to bed and all that, but somehow it feels like life is unfair to him. He cannot even. I mean, he couldn't even afford to get basic things for his own for his child. I mean, I remember that very well. I felt so much empathy for him. Now, this is one situation, and then I decided to actually tell him my story. That's what I wrote here. So, reading back from chapter 2, I decided to actually tell him my own story. Thankfully, I still have a scar in my left palm. It's I don't know if you could say it. It's here. That reminds me of tough times. Okay, let me talk about this a bit. So, when I was young, we had to farm a lot. We had to go to farm. I spoke about. I mean, I wrote in this book about a time when um, I had to, there was no food in the house. I was a young boy. I had so much. I mean, there was so much life, so much belief in myself. The beautiful thing is that I never saw those. If I reflecting now, I never saw those times as tough. Because of the hope I had. I mean, that's the core importance of chapter 1. Greatness prophesied. The greatness I spoke into. I mean, my parents spoke over us. Did not make us consider what we were going through. So we used to go to farm those days, and if you've been to farm, because we're so used to it. If you've walked in the farm, you've walked with hoes, with cutlasses. So what happens is that at times when you're done, your whole hands. There was a time all of my hands were filled with blisters. My hands are at this point. Right now they've all gone. Just one left here. So that's what I was referring to. So anytime I look at this, it always reminds me. I said the Lord did not allow it to heal because those days it was all over my hands because it reminds me of where I came from. All right. Now, when the young man heard my story, it left hope in him. So when I was with I remember talking to the guy and told him a lot of things. How I mean, we had to work hard beyond anything. I was like, see, you're seeing me by my car right now. If I tell you where I'm coming from, thankfully that day I was very close to there's this place called the Aluminium Village, and I was telling him how I even walked there, you know. And so when I told him my story, first of all, I saw surprise on his face because a lot of persons don't believe that until you tell them that you've been through some stuff. All right, I saw surprise on his face when I told him the things I had been through in this life, but I also told him how grateful I was for the lesson I am ever reminded of, you know, grateful for the lesson. And I'm ever reminded of reflecting on them now to always stay humble. I mean, one of the beautiful things really about hardship at times, I used to say, I used to have a time I call my moment of sober reflection. You never get to a point where You feel like, oh, I have made it, and then you forget where you're coming from. All right. That's what it is. So sometimes when I reflect on where the Lord has brought me from, it just helps me. I mean, I'm always reminded to stay humble. And no matter where the Lord takes me to in life, it's the same thing. Always stay humble. That's it. Okay. So let me read on now. So while it's easy to talk about the challenges of lack, which is one, I mean, so easy to talk about that. There is also the heartbreak of losing two of my siblings back then as a child. Um, a number of persons who know me personally would be surprised to realize I wasn't actually the firstborn of my parents because I had an older brother. As kids, we played together. He was older by just a year, so at a point, people used to think we were twins. I couldn't understand back then, as a 7 year old, he was 8, when my mom tried to explain to me that my older brother had gone to heaven. I remember telling her that I wanted to go too, as a child, but she rebuked me immediately. I remember looking back now, I could remember so many times when I would always think as a child that one day my brother will come back because I was that close to him. I just kept thinking one day. I mean, back then as a child, I used to dream about him a lot. I wake up, I'll tell my mom, oh, I dreamt about this guy. His name was Gospel. So, that was one thing. And then as I grew old, it dawned on me that, okay, this boy is gone. He was born with sickle cell anemia, and you can imagine how parents struggle to feed. I mean, parents struggling to feed, having to deal with a child with sickle cell anemia. Well, that was not all. I also lost my younger brother. This one, he didn't have sickle cell. My immediate younger brother then. Um, this time I was how old was I then? I was going to 10. So it was like within I lost my immediate younger brother 92. I lost um the other one 95. So it was within 3 years. There was a point I felt maybe God just didn't like us. There may be persons going through things like this. That's the purpose for the climb. Because you go through some things and you get to a point like, is it only me? Does God truly love me? Am I the most wicked, most hated person on earth? There was a point, and then it was as a child, not even now that okay, you're an adult and you've probably seen life. It was then as a child. There was a point I felt God didn't like me. My dad was someone who was very committed as a pastor. My mom was a women leader then. She was also committed in church, and they had to go through two heartbreaks. And I wrote here that I personally never think. I mean, personally, I don't think my parents ever recovered from those losses. I mean, even when we're all grown, married, and all that, I mean, our parents will still refer to those. The fact is this: life was really tough. It's one sad reality about life when you realize that at times things are just tough. And I wrote here, let me continue reading my book. I remember also how while in GSS 3, I had to clear bushes in a plot of land. I'm smiling now reading this. And I was paid 300 naira. Now, I mean, this is what I did not write in the book. After doing that, there was so much joy. Guys, it was not like I didn't feel like I was suffering. I tell you, when I was done clearing the land, I was so joyful that I composed the song. And then I got the sandals. Then there was this sandals I was raining then. It was 300 naira. It was exactly the amount I used to buy that sandals. Then I was in GSS 3. And I wrote a song for that sandals. I still know the song, but I won't sing it here. you know, that's it. I had to, it was so beautiful. I mean, I remember buying the sandals and I had to draw it. I mean, putting the sandals on a book, on a paper, and then drawing around it and then placing it somewhere. When they say there is dignity in labor, there's fulfillment that comes with hard work. I must tell you, it was, when it came to those parts where I had to work hard, I can look back now and say with all confidence, I never felt bad doing it. It was not a case of I was doing it and I was crying. No, there was the beauty. I felt fulfilled. There was a fulfillment that came with it. All right. So that's it. And I'm telling you now that some of the things you may be doing right now may be things that, sometimes if you want to compare yourself with friends, compare yourself with what others are doing. It feels like, I'm suffering. No. One of the lessons I thank God for, because these are the things that will now form you. I'm a techpreneur now, and those are the things that have shaped me. If you're going to go into business, there are lots of things that you will face in the business world. So this hardship shaped me a lot. Um, Paul said somewhere in scriptures, he said, I've learned how to abound and how to abase. So I've learned through it all. Okay, so that's it. So your current hardship um, doesn't have to be, I mean, you can use it in two ways. You can use hardship in a way that you just you soak it all in. You pity yourself. You cry. You weep. You're angry with God. You give up. I mean, that's the ultimate. That's one way. And I mean, then you now ask yourself, what do you actually gain there? Nothing. Nothing. You lose your potentials. By the grace of God today, I've been a blessing to lots of persons, especially youth. Imagine if I had given up back then, when it looked like, imagine if I had gotten to a point and said, oh, it feels like God doesn't like me. So just test. Then there is another way to look at it, to say, and honestly, I can tell you guys, I remember when I was in university, it's one of the things I told myself. Firstly, I always tell myself things like, I can't live like other persons because I know where I'm coming from. I mean, I reminded myself of those. I would sit down and remind myself, guy, you can't live like these guys. These guys probably didn't have your past. I knew where I was coming from. I used to tell people today how much. So, I mean, I needed God. And one of the things that challenged it for me was that it drew me to wanting to really know God. You know, that's one of the blessings of challenges, because um let's talk recently, I think it was this week or last week, I somebody, a young person, told me how that she was going through a lot, and then she's beginning to doubt if there is even God. I said, see, the world itself, your life itself, is a proof there is God. I made this analogy, and I'm going to say this today. Sometimes, maybe, if you have you ever seen some things that amaze you in the world? I mean, for instance, you could just be on Third Mainland Bridge, or you look at the London Bridge. I mean, some of the great things that human beings did, you look at it and you're like, wow, how did these people come up with this? Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you look at those things and say, they just happened? No, you never say so. If you're someone who thinks, you're like, these are taking a lot of engineering work, a lot of intelligence. Now look at your own life, the things human beings did not do. If you want to go into biology and talk about the complexity of you being a human being, do you know how many neurons you have in your body? Do you know how complex the structure of your eyes is? Have you ever wondered how you grew from being a baby? Do you know the time when you were stretching and then you were increasing in height? Was it happening when you were sleeping? I used to tell my youth, think. Was it when you were sleeping, when you were walking? Do you just imagine, oh, I just grew? You don't know. You just got to a point you had to measure your height and like, oh, he has grown. When did you stretch? You don't know. I mean, the when you think about the amazing things about creature, and we are surrounded with everything, even the air we breathe. Have you thought about oxygen, how it goes into your body, how you cannot, if you decide to close your nose for how many seconds, you're gone? Have you gone to the ocean and look at the beautiful waves? These things are not man-made. Hey, have you also looked at the intelligence everywhere? See, the point is, that's why the Bible says it's a fool that says there is no God. And so it just happened. Why don't you look at beautiful close pattern and say it just happened? Because intelligence did this. Now there is something that is way more intelligent, that could have done everything that we know that no man did, and that's God. So the right question when you're going through those tough times is not if you're wise, it's not if there is God. The right question is, do I really know God? Have I really found him? So a time came in my life, and I journaled it in this book, and that's why I say, as much as possible, get this book. And um, if you know people who are going through stuff, give them this book. Um, what challenges did for me was that it drew me to wanting to really know God. Are we together? I mean, that's it. It's like, okay, maybe I've been on the wrong path. Let's have this conversation. A lot of us we're probably born into a path. We were taught principles. We were taught a particular way of life, a particular way of living, and all that. How are you sure that the people who taught you that are right? Think about it. Even for most of us, we are probably Christians because our parents are Christian. I'm a Christian because my dad was a Christian, mostly, firstly. But a point came in my life, I knew that was not enough. And I wrote it in this book because I knew when I was now searching for God, it felt like, come, let's forget about all these other things. Let us now find this God ourselves. I can tell you with all confidence, there was a point I wanted to prove God for myself. That's what it is. And I want to say this. I tell people this. Why do we have to do that? It's our worship. If you look at scriptures, God has made us to. He said, you will seek me and you will find me when you have sought me with all of your heart. God has made us to go to seek Him with all of our hearts. He said, the Bible says in Hebrews 11 verse 6, He said, God is the rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. I have challenged persons. I've had an atheist before years ago. I met him outside this country. He was a successful guy, and I challenged him. I mean, I just told him my story really, and I told him, and then he said, I want to know God for myself." And you know what? He came back some days back. I was like, "Wow, I have challenged people of different religions, beyond the things you hear, beyond the things you were told from when you were a child. Do you really know God? Honest. There are many Christians who don't know God. So it's not about being a Christian. All right. So that's it. So one of the things that challenges did for me was that it pulled me into finding God. All right. I'll read through some phases now. I mean, some lines here. He said, "I recall the time my mom said there was no lunch. I think I've said this. Let me go to this other paragraph. Um, I can talk about a whole lot really. Is it the countless battles with my own health, having to be admitted several times in the hospital. That was the worst part. My parents had lost my elder one and my immediate younger brother. And at the point they were fighting for my own health. A lot of times I mean, imagine these were not people who had money. A lot of times, at the point it felt constant that I had to always be in the hospital. Most time, typhoid, malaria. That was it. You know, I remember, and then there was a health challenge. There was also the challenge of um, you know, after secondary school, I was supposed to be a smart guy, but then Jam Jam did a lot to me, did a whole lot in my life. I mean, in our own local term, we say something like jammed me so many times. You know, So that was it. I wrote Jam 6 times. So there was a time I was in a conference somewhere, in a university in Nigeria. I was invited to come and speak, and then the speaker before I actually wrote that here. Okay, let me just read. The speaker before was talking about how she had very good grades in school. She graduated at the age of 21 and all that. And then I had to tell the audience, one thing about me. Somehow I just want to be myself. There's no fake life. You can't see that with me by the grace of God. I had to be myself, and and where I decided to start from was to say, see, me who was like, thank God for our previous speaker. She had an excellent life, but for me, I failed 6 times, I mean, and you know what happened? Immediately I said that, I think I got the attention of all the audience. Everyone wanted to listen. Okay, so you failed 6 times. Why are you coming to talk to us? That was it. I told them my story. But you know what? Why I had to tell them that is that your failure does not define you. I want you to write that in the comment section. Your failure really doesn't define you. Because during those years, I mean, I wrote my first jam 2001. So that from 2001 to 2006, which was actually 6 jam. I wrote the first one while I was writing my wife. Those were one of the best years of my life. Now thinking back, actually, but back then it was among the worst years because there was a point when I was writing one of my jams that was seized. My fifth jam was actually seized because I wrote it in motion. Sadly. And I remember when I was writing that jam. After jam, I jammed it 4 times, so the fifth one was seized. And then I one of my friends who, while we were in secondary school, was not even as smart as I was graduating from is it APSU now? It is a university in Ogun State. And this guy was graduating. And I remember hearing this and I felt so bad. I mean, I've not even gotten admission. Back then, it was a big deal because most people my age had gone to school, but I was at home, that was it. So I mean, I went through that, and you could just be watching me right now, and that's what you're going through. That's the purpose of this. It's not just about me. There's when you've gone through some stuff in life, and then you can tell your story, and somebody gets blessed listening to your story, then that suffering was worth it. That's what inspired me to write this book, Decline. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. I don't want to take so much time. If you're yeah, I can see a lot of persons are written your failure does not define you. Your failure does not define you. Now I'm going to be stopping here so that I don't take so much of your time, and then we'll continue from where I just stopped now in our next session. But the one thing I want to be able to leave you with is this: the challenges you are going through, the frustrations you're going through, the lack of finances. Sometimes somebody told me recently, say it feels like everything is against me. You know, I'm always telling the story because it felt like, I mean, everything, because it was like back to back, you know. And I told him, I said, those challenges can do two things: pushing you to giving up. If you think about it, there is no benefit there. It's a wasted life. But there is the other one, pushing you to really find God and then finding purpose in it. There is a purpose for every pain, and that's why I call this chapter Shaped by Shadows, Strengthened by Thorns. That's it. I will continue from this. We're going to still look at this from our next session, but I just want to leave that to you for those challenges. Let it drive you to God, so you get to a point you actually ask God sincerely. See, there's a lot of insincerity out there. A lot of persons, these days they will attend programs online, attend streaming sessions, do a lot of things, but they are actually not sincere with God. If you want to find God, there's a place of diligence. There's a place of sincerity. Come just as you are. That's the truth. It's God who created you. Even your parents did not know. A lot of times they don't even know when your dad impregnated your mom, and how you were formed, how you became who you are. It is God who actually formed you. Why not find Him yourself? I know in finding God, one of the beautiful things about this, by the grace of God also, um, my life and my story has greatly influenced my other siblings. I mean, they all look up to me and see me as an example. The career my younger ones are somehow, was greatly influenced by me. That's the one thing. So it could be that when your fortunes change, when you're the person who changed the story in your family, it's not just be for you. It will affect your entire life. You have affect your entire generation. It will affect lots of people. A lot of persons have found hope. There was a year many years ago. I was someone who had just graduated from school, had finished serving. The dad was talking to me in his presence. I was like, see, this my son. I have wasted money on him. He studied your course. He did. I mean, the father practically finished this boy while I was right there, and I was not even the only person there. There were other persons, and so I felt so bad. The man was an elderly man, so I couldn't confront him. But when he was done, I called the boy by my side. I also told him my story, and I told him, I said, give yourself time. Find God first, then give yourself time. And within those times, I told him, this is what you're going to do, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I know this person very well. I mean, if I had the permission, I could have said you should check his LinkedIn page. The guy is a success story today. He's a programmer of repute. And today he's like the star. He's like the star in his house. And I tell you that if I could replay that moment to his father, I'm sure the father will be feeling bad. He'll be embarrassed that he spoke those words concerning his son. Those things you have been through so far, find strength and courage in it. I mean, see, they can come in different ways. For you, you could be that, oh, you were even born to wealth and it is not finances. I mean, it could be some form of frustration. You could have had lots of heartbreaks. You could have probably trusted people, and then, I mean, they disappointed you, they failed you. It comes in different ways. But let those things push you to God. And then you find Him. And when you find God, I can tell you this: you find in Him victory, you find in Him life, you find in God fulfillment. If you truly search for Him, you will find Him. All right. So that's it. I'll be ending here. Um, and then I'm going to be taking questions Yes. Thank you, everyone. I can see your comments here. Some persons are saying, yes, when you find God, you find life because God is really the author of life. I'll be taking questions. Somebody had asked me a question before to this session. I will try to get um, that question. All right. So that I will address it. I actually told the person I was going to address it during this session, and I am sure the person is online. So the person asked this question. Okay, he said this. He said, um, okay. He said, I want to ask a question. How did you keep pushing even when the doubts, even when doubters, like naysayers, self doubt, and expectation, even though it is pulling you down, how did you keep pushing? The answer is this. I've given examples even of the young man I spoke about. I didn't even have it in mind when I'm just remembering that you asked this question. I mean, he's in his own case, his dad was his doubter, his own father that brought him to this world was his doubter. Somebody else also told me how her mom was practically the one who was against her life. She was saying how that she remembers words that her mom said to her. So there are, doubters. Sometimes you now begin to doubt yourself. So sometimes when things happen around you, they make you sometimes to begin to even doubt your own self. You now ask yourself, wait, oh, even the results you had, maybe some of the little successes you had, maybe in primary school you were a success story. Like, was that really me, or it was just luck, it was just coincidence? Some of your answered prayers, you yourself begin to doubt it. Those things happen, I tell you. And you may just be in that phase right now, where you just feel like, am I really sure? Because you just had a failure. You just went for an interview and then you failed, and the job was not given to you. Those things happen. But I tell you this, for me, first of all, it was finding God. Finding God was the answer to everything. I got to point. I wrote in my book here how there was a time I was coming from Ikeja Computer Village, and I was so frustrated, and I said, Lord, I really want to find you. And that same day, that same night, I had a dream that I've never forgotten. And the summary of the dream is this: I've never forgotten it till today. Every challenge that comes your way just wants to take you away from God. It wants to make you to lose your faith. He wants to see, the devil wants you to die. He wants you to die now. The Bible says the thief comes not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. What the devil wants is for you to die right now. He doesn't want you to. The devil is the greatest enemy. The Bible calls him our adversary, the devil. And so he's going to do everything. And sometimes God actually allows those things to shape you. You must understand that God allows tests. Long suffering is one of the gifts of the Spirit. And then not just that, the Bible says that, um, give patience its place. I think I quoted that scripture somewhere in my book too. So when after it all, you are thorough and complete, lacking nothing. Someone cannot come to me now and want to tell me, oh, this is what I'm going through. I can tell you my story, all right. But if I did not go through some of those things, I may not be able to say it, all right. So that's what it is. Most times we're more impactful when we're able to talk from our own life. So that's what it is. So the core thing is, let your life be plugged to God, because God is the real one. I trust God for my success. Like I said how that while I was in school, I constantly reminded myself how much I needed God, because even getting to that school was a testimony. So when you have God as your focus, David put it this way. Sorry, I'm just paraphrasing. He said, ah, he said, since I have set the Lord at my right hand, I've set the Lord before me. Yes. And he said, since it's at my right hand, I will not be moved. So I've set the Lord, like I've set the Lord in front of me, above every other thing. Every other thing could be distractions. But the Lord is my focus. And because it's at my right hand, these challenges will not move me. That's the way to look at that. You can check that scripture out somewhere in Psalms. That's it. So you find strength in Him. Get to a point where you hear the Lord speak to you. Speaks, I had lots of times the Lord spoke to me in dreams. That's it. So you find strength there. Your doubters should not be the people you're listening to. There are people who believe in you. I have a number of persons, and that's where, for instance, by the grace of God, I'm so committed to mentorship. Amongst my mentees, I have a lot of persons who people gave up on. I have people who I just gave a story. I have people who their own parents who that have even suffered, say, okay, this child would be the one to rescue me, gave up on them. I was once in a meeting, and a lot of elders were speaking, and they were talking about someone, And it felt like they were like, no, this person is useless. And I was the only one in that meeting who said no. Because I had spoken to the person. I said, no, this person, you watch out for him. I believe in the person. Today the person is a testimony. So that's what it is. Close your ears to your doubters. Believe in God and look out for those people who also believe in you. All right. So that's it. Somebody said this is challenges come for you to challenge it, for you to challenge it through God. Most importantly, why you need to discover God. Yes, face your challenges. Don't run away from it. Okay. I don't know if I don't know if I missed any question. I wasn't looking at the chart. Um, so that's it. In finding God, your life influences others. Find God in your challenges. Yes, that's it. Okay. So I think that would be all for now. I can't see any question here. Um, I would be closing here. And I want to tell you, for everyone who was here today, as much as possible, make it a duty to invite at least one or two persons to our next edition. We'll be having this every 2 weeks. I think that's convenient for me. So we continue where we stop now. By That's in 2 weeks' time. That will be on the 15th of November. All right. Cheers. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. Bye.